Hello guys, this is Deepika from MyTutorialRack.com. In this tutorial, we are going to go ahead and talk about a couple more things related to SOQL, which is another name for Salesforce Object Query Language. So the first thing we're going to do is the reserved characters. So what are these reserved characters? The single quote and the backslash characters are reserved in SOQL queries. And if you want to use them, then you need to precede them by a backslash to be properly interpreted. Means if you wanted to make sure that this particular if you're trying to use, let's say you're searching for a account name with the name Bob's Barbecue. So you can see here that it has a single quote in the name. So if you wanted to go ahead and search for something like this and you want that this single quote should be interpreted correctly, then you have to precede this using the backslash. So means you have to escape it. Then the single quote must be escaped using the backslash. So as you can see here in the example, see Bob's Barbecue. So this is what I'm using a backslash so that my single quote can get interpreted correctly. So let's go ahead and do this example. So first thing is, let's first see if you have an account with the name Bob's Barbecue. I don't think so. So I'm going to go ahead and create this record here. So I'm going to go ahead and create a account with the name Bob's Barbecue. So go ahead and hit the save button. So I have created an account with the name of Bob's Barbecue, and you can see there is a single quote in the name. So now next thing is, let's say if I'm trying to go ahead and search for this particular record here. So let's say we wanted to go ahead and select the ID from the account. If you wanted to go ahead and select the name, you can even do that. Select the ID name from the account where the name is like Bob's. So if you're going to use something like this, Bob's, and you're going to go ahead and give the name completely like this, Bob's Barbecue. Now if you go ahead, see, it's going to get confused. See, this thing is going to get confused, and if you try to execute it, it's giving you an error. There's a parsing query error. So you can see here, because it does not understand, okay, what is this single quote and why you have two single quotes. So if you want this particular query to run smoothly and gets this single quote interpreted correctly, you need to go ahead and use the backslash here. And then if you're going to go ahead and hit the execute button, this time it's going to get interpreted correctly, and it's going to go ahead and give you a correct Bob's Barbecue account name and the ID. Because the query editor got confused, like if you're not using backslash, it got confused that, okay, is this the name I'm searching for? If this is the name, then what is this thing? So it got confused. In order to use this, or in order to interpret this correctly, we're going to go ahead and use this backslash, and then if you execute it, it'll give you the result correctly. So this is what we have is the reserved characters. Now the next thing we have is the escaped character example. So let's say what we have different kinds of characters that we use here, which have special meaning. So let's go ahead and create a bunch of names with starting with the letter TER. Okay, so let's go ahead and create something, these names. We're going to learn about what does this percentage means and how do we escape it and all these kind of things. So let's go ahead and create three different accounts. Let's go ahead and create accounts where the first account we can say, let's say we have is Terry. This is the account that we have, Terry. Go ahead and hit the save button. Then we're going to go ahead and create another account here, and the name of the account is going to be Ter, and then we have a percent sign. And then the third thing that we're going to do here is, let's say we're going to go ahead and create another one, the save button. So now we have three different accounts with a different version. One we have steady, then we have terb and percentage, and then we have 5-character sequence. And let's say we have another one and hit the save button. So now I have created, these are the different accounts where the starting is TER. And let's go ahead and see what is the meaning of each of these select statements. So if let's say I wanted to go ahead and look for the accounts which are starting with the TER. So let's see now what will happen is, and we are using a percent sign. Percent signs means it can be 0 or more characters. So it will select all the account where the name begins with the 3-character sequence. So it only looks at the first three character sequence. It can be a 4-letter word, it can be 5. So if this character sequence matches, if the first three characters is TER, it's going to go ahead and give you that result. So let's go ahead and run this query. So we're going to select the ID name. So we're going to go back to our developer console. We're going to go ahead and say select the ID, the name, from which, from the account table where the name is like TER and percent. So what the percent is basically telling you, it can have 0 or more characters. It is going to fetch TER, it's going to fetch TER, whatever is there, we're starting with TER, it's going to go ahead and fetch all the results. So let's go ahead and execute this. You will see it has fetched everything. It fetched Terry, it's fetched the Terry %6, and fetched everything because all of them are starting with the 3-character sequence called TER. So that's why this is the purpose of the using a percent sign. So let's say if you wanted to go ahead and select all the accounts whose name exactly matches the 4-character sequence, this one. So let's say you wanted to only look for the record where it exactly, not starts with or begins with, exactly matches. So we're looking for a 4-letter word which is exactly equals to %. So now what we're going to do here is, since I told you if you wanted to get this percent size interpreted correctly, you need to go ahead and use the backslash. This is the most important point. Since you want this particular percent sign to be interpreted correctly, because you're looking for the letter TER percent sign. You're not looking for TER and then anything can come after that. You're looking for a 4-character sequence whose name exactly matches the 4-character sequence, this one, TER percent. So let's go ahead and run this query. So if I'm going to go ahead and say where name like, see, this gave me all the 4 results. If I'm going to go ahead and use the backslash, then what will it mean? It will look for something with the name TER percent. So there is only one record which is the name TER percent. So there is only one record will be returned back from this query. So we're going to go ahead and see only one result came. Then none of the other records came because this will thing get interpreted correctly. This is basically writing something like TER percent. So we are looking for something for a character sequence with its TER percent. Is there any record with the account name as TER percent? Yes. If yes, then fetch it. So this is what is the difference between using a backslash and not using a backslash. If you're using a backslash, means you want this to be a part of the string that you're checking for. If you are not using the backslash, basically you're saying that, okay, TER should be the first 3 letters, and then you can have n number of characters after that. Now, the next thing that we have here is if you wanted to select all the accounts whose name begins with the 4-character sequence, this one. So you not only looking for only the 4-character account names, you're looking for the account name where the name begins with the 4-character sequence. Something like this. So how are you going to go ahead and see? So let's say we're going to go back to our query. And here we're going to say, instead of saying, I'm going to go ahead and say percent. So basically what it is going to do, so this means that, okay, we are looking, the 4-character sequence should be this. This is what this means. So till this point, it means that we are looking for a sequence like this. And what is the purpose of the next percent sign? This percent sign, the next percent sign is telling you that, okay, after this 4 character sequence, n number of characters can become. So what will be the output of the program? It is going to go ahead and fetch this one and then all the records which have this TER percent in them. So let's go ahead and execute this. So these are the only 2 records which have the character sequence TER percent. So it fetched you those records. So these are the different escape character examples. So if you wanted to look for a particular string, you're going to go ahead and use this with a percent sign. If you're not worrying about, if you're only looking for whose name begins with the 3-character sequence, you're going to use this. If you wanted to make sure the name exactly matches the 4-character sequence and you want with the percent signs, you're going to escape that character. And then we have is the last one. So these are the escaped character examples. Now we have is the alias notation. Now alias is giving another name. So you can use alias notation in select queries also. So let's say I wanted to find out total number of contacts related to the account name barbecue. So let's say we wanted to calculate the total number of contacts which are related to the this particular account name. So let's go ahead and first create an account with the name of barbecue. So we're going to go ahead and create an account with the name barbecue in it. And now we're going to go ahead and create multiple records under this account. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new account here. So let's say this is the another account. Let's go ahead and create another contact. So we're going to go ahead and create a second contact here, and the name is John. So these are the two contacts that I've created for which particular account? For the account barbecue. Now I'm going to show you the alias notation example. So I've created this account called barbecue, BBQ, and then I have two contacts associated with this. One is John and the second one is Smith. So what is the requirement here? The requirement is if I want to find out the total number of contacts related to that particular account name. So how are we going to go ahead and execute this query? So we're going to go ahead and say select the total number. So we have to count. Select the total number from the contact table. So we have to find the total number of records, contact records. So you're using alias here. So we're giving a name to contact is C. So C is the alias here. And then instead of saying contact.account, we're going to say C.of_account because we are replacing this alias. We're using this alias, which is basically like another name for contact. So instead of saying contact everywhere, you're giving another name and you're giving a short name, which is called C. So wherever you're using C, it actually means for contact A, where a dot of name is equals to barbecue. So basically the account name. So here another name, this one is also got an alias for. So a dot name means this particular thing. C dot account is basically A. C dot account is basically A. So we are saying where the A dot name is equals to barbecue. So this is going to be the output. Select the count from contact C dot account A where the A dot name is equals to barbecue. So it is going to go ahead and give me the total number of contact records which are associated with the account barbecue. So let's go ahead and execute it. So the main purpose here is we are giving an alias here. For the contact, we are using another name which is called C. And similarly, the C dot account is also referred as A. So this is another alias. We're going to go ahead and execute it. So it says the output is going to be 2 because there are two contact records which are related with the account barbecue. So if you go ahead and add another contact here, our query is going to give you a different result. So let's say we have added a third contact which is related to the account barbecue. So if you go ahead and execute the same query, what will be the output this time? The output is going to be 3. So the output is going to be 3 here. So this is what the alias notation is for. Next, we have some implementation tips or the most important points to remember about the SOQL statements. So the first thing is the statement character limit. By default, the SOQL statement cannot exceed 20,000 characters in length. And if you're using an SOQL statement that exceeds this maximum length of 20,000, then what will happen is the API will return a malformed query exception code and no results are returned. So if you're using an SOQL statement which is exceeding 25,000 characters in length, then you're going to go ahead and get this exception called malformed query exception. Now, dynamic SOQL in Apex. Apex requires that you surround the SOQL as well as the SL statements with square brackets to use them on the fly. So whenever we are writing the code or whenever we're writing the query using the anonymous window, we have always put the query inside of the square brackets, if you remember. I've shown you this example before also. So even if you go back to this one, whenever we have written the query, we have always written in the square brackets. Ordered results. The order of the result is not guaranteed unless you use an order by clause in the query. So if let's say you wanted to go ahead and order the result by last name or first name, you have to specify the order by clause. If you do not specify the order by clause, then the results will not be guaranteed that they will be in order. So if you wanted to make sure they are in order, then you have to use the order by clause. Then the condition expression syntax, or basically the where clause. We have already done a lot of example on this one, But if I want to do, if you still confused how to use a where clause, I'm going to go ahead and do some more example related to that here. So let's say we are going to go ahead and find out all the accounts which begin with the letter A. Okay, so how we're going to go ahead and do it? We're going to go back here and we're going to go ahead and select the name, and if you want to select the ID from the account records. So this is going to go ahead, this particular query is going to go ahead and return everything which is available. So it's going to go ahead and give you all the 22 records which are available in the account object. But if you're going to go ahead and filter the results, or if you wanted to go ahead and put a condition where the name like is A, means starts with the letter A. So is there anything with the letter A in it? Starts with the letter A, let's leave it and put it U. Starts with the letter U and percent. So percent means it can be any number of characters after this. Okay, like means it is matching. It is not exactly should be, it's not going to be equals to, it's going to be like, because we are kind of saying like which starts with the letter U. So now if you go ahead and execute, it is going to go ahead and return you all the account names where the first letter is U. If you go ahead and say United here, then it will only going to go ahead and fetch the first two and this third record because it matches the United. It will not show you the University of Arizona. So if you go ahead and execute it, it is only going to go ahead and give you these three records. Similarly, there's another example. Let's say you wanted to go ahead and select the ID from the contact. So what will it do? It will go ahead and fetch all the records because you have not used any condition. So it is going to go ahead and fetch all the records. But let's say you're interested in a contact where the name starts with the letter, let's say A, and then we have percent sign. So starts with the letter A, and another condition. So mailing city or mailing state is equals to California. So this is what the query looks like. Select the ID from the contact object. So this is the object where the name should be. So all the contacts where the name starts with the letter A and the mailing state is equals to California. So that is, it's going to go ahead, and if I go ahead and execute, this is the query, this is the condition that it has to match. So the records which are going to get pulled off will be matching this condition. Since there is no records where the mailing state is California and the name is like this. So let's go ahead and fetch the name also and see what kind of name we have. Okay, and let's say we're only interested in, let's go ahead and remove this query first and let's go and execute. So what kind of ID and the name? Okay, so we have let's say where the name starts with the letter J, and let me also go ahead and fetch the mailing city as one of the column, mailing state as one of the column. Let's go ahead and execute this program, this query. So the mailing state is NC, so it's all of J. Okay, so here we can write and mailing state is equals to NC. So which record will it return? It will only return this particular result. The name would be Jack Rogers and then the mailing state is NC. Go ahead and hit the execute button. So this is the where condition example. Let's say you wanted to go ahead and do another query here. Select the amount from the opportunity. This is another example where the calendar year, so let's say the created date is greater than 2016. So all the records which were created after 2016, it is going to go ahead and give me all those records which are created after 2016. But if you say 2015, it's going to go ahead and fetch all the records, opportunity records, where the created date is greater than 2015. So this is what the where condition is. Then we have is using the null in the SOQL queries. So you can search for null values by using the null keyword. And if you use null to represent null values in SOQL queries. So these are the things that you can do. You can search for null values, and also you can use null to represent null values in SOQL queries. So let's do some example to illustrate what I'm talking about. So let's go back to our developer console here, and let's say we wanted to go ahead and select all the account ID and the name from the event where the activity date is not equals to null, means where there is some activity date present, we wanted to go ahead and fetch all the records. So select the account ID from which table? From the event table, where the activity date, so where the activity is not equals to null. So if you are checking for a null value, so this is, you can specify here, you don't need to have it, make it as a string, null is itself is going to get recognized. So you're checking if the activity date is equals to not equals to null, then go ahead and give me all the records. So what it's going to give you, it gave me 3 records, and for all these 3 records the activity date is not equals to null. So let's say if you wanted to check for null, so how we'll say, you'll say select the ID from a object called case where the contact last name is equals to null, means you're checking for if it is null or not, if the contact last name is null. So there's no record where the contact last name is null. Let's say if the first name is null. So there's no other records where the first name, okay, so there's no records where the contact first name is also equals to null. So this is what we can use. So you can use null for two things. You can use search for null values by using the null keyword, and also you can use null to represent null values in SOQL. Null is basically empty or nothing. That's what the null stands for. Then we have querying the multi-select pick list. So guys, a lot of times you might come across a multi-select pick list. Let's take an example. Let's say I have a object where there is a field called subject field, and basically that subject field is used to capture what subjects are you enrolled in the college. So let's say the values for the subject field are computer, English, science, and maths. And since it's a multi-select pick list, so you can select multiple subjects. Let's say I'm enrolled in computer as well as English. So that's because it's a multi-select, you can select more than one values. So let's say if you wanted to go ahead and query a multi-select pick list, how are you going to do? So let's say we wanted to go ahead and find the customers where the subject that they have chosen is computer and English. So these are the two things. When these are the two things the customer has selected, if these are the two subjects the customer selected, so I'm going to only interested in those students where the subject that they're enrolled is, it either is computer and English. So this particular query will give you all the records of the customer where the subject is equals to computer and English. So this is what you have to use. You have used a semicolon in between that, okay, you want computer and English both as the selections for a student. And you can use this, everything else remains same. Select ID, subject, and from the object name, the where clause it say where the subject is equals to computer, semicolon English, means give me all the students who are enrolled in computer and English. Similarly, if you want, let's say, all the students who are enrolled in computer and English or they're enrolled in maths. So how you're going to ask that query, how you're going to write the query, you're going to use the computer English because these are mandatory, or. So or would be, so you're going to close this with a comma, and then you're going to specify math. So this is the way this query will filter on values in the subject field that contain either computer and English as the subject or maths as a subject. So this is how you're going to go ahead and query. Computer semicolon English because you want if the student is enrolled in both of these or if the student is enrolled in maths. So those are the records it is going to go ahead and fetch. So this is about querying the multi-select pick list.